The sky above the quiet human colony turned an unusual shade of silver as the morning sun hid behind strange clouds, and the air carried a hum that no one had ever heard before. The people in the streets stopped what they were doing and looked up in confusion, while children held on to their parents and traders abandoned their stalls to stare at the heavens. A strange shimmering shape was cutting through the clouds, and it was bigger than any ship they had ever seen. Its presence alone made the ground tremble lightly, and the hum grew louder, as if the sky itself was calling out the young human named Liam. Lived a simple life in the colony, working at the outer docks, repairing small transport crafts. He had never imagined his world would change so suddenly. One moment he was tightening a loose bolt on a shuttle engine, and next he was staring up with the rest of the workers, his hands covered in grease, as the massive alien starship descended in slow silence. The ship was sleek and glowing, with lines of energy running along its surface like rivers of light. It stopped just above the colony's central plaza, casting a shadow over every building and leaving everyone frozen in awe and fear. A beam of blue light poured down from the ship, touching the plaza and spreading across the ground like water flowing through cracks. It scanned every face, every heart, every living soul in the colony. Liam felt the warmth of the light as it passed over him, and then he heard a voice. It was soft yet commanding, as if it came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It spoke in perfect human language, announcing that certain humans had been chosen, that destiny itself had called them, and that their names would now be spoken. The voice began to call names one by one, and the chosen stepped forward, each one trembling, unsure of what fate awaited them. Liam kept telling himself that his name would not be called. He was just a mechanic. He had no special talents, nothing that would make him important. But then the voice said his name, clear and sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. Everyone turned to look at him. His heart pounded in his chest as he stepped forward, his legs heavy as stone. The beam of light wrapped around him, gently lifting him from the ground. He rose into the air while people whispered below. His eyes locked onto the open hangar bay of the alien ship above, and fear mixed with a strange pull deep inside his chest, as if something was waiting for him up there, something he could not see yet. When he landed inside the alien ship, the first thing he noticed was the silence. The hum of the engines was distant. The air was warmer and filled with a soft glowing mist. Before he could take another step, he heard footsteps from the shadows. And then she appeared. She was taller than him, slender and graceful, her silver skin shimmering like the ship itself, her dark eyes glowing faintly with some power he did not understand. She wore armor that looked ceremonial and deadly at the same time. She stopped only a few steps away from him, a small smirk playing on her lips, and her voice was rich with confidence as she said, "Human destiny has matched us. Your alien mate awaits you now." Liam's breath caught in his throat. He had no idea what she meant, but the way she looked at him left no doubt that his life would never be the same. Again Liam stood frozen as the alien girl's words echoed in his mind. He tried to speak, but his mouth felt dry, and his thoughts tangled in fear and confusion. She did not wait for him to respond. Instead, she turned gracefully and gestured for him to follow her deeper into the glowing corridors of the ship. Every wall pulsed with faint light, as if the entire vessel was alive and breathing, and he found himself glancing around in awe, unable to understand how such technology could even exist. The floor beneath his boots was smooth and warm, like polished stone, and his footsteps were soft and hesitant as he trailed behind her. The girl's presence was impossible to ignore. She walked with a quiet strength, her silver skin glimmering with each movement, and the long braid of her dark hair swaying behind her. Liam could feel the weight of her smirk even when he could not see her face. She carried herself like someone who was used to being obeyed, and he realized that she had not truly asked him to come. She had simply told him what destiny had decided, and now he was here in a world that was no longer his own. They entered a vast chamber that opened like the heart of the ship. High arching walls curved upward, and light fell from unseen sources, casting soft glows on rows of alien figures who stood silently observing Liam. felt their eyes on him, and it was as if they were studying a creature they had never seen before. They were tall and elegant like the girl, though each carried different markings on their skin and wore strange garments lined with metallic symbols. The air felt heavy as one of the elders stepped forward, their voice low and powerful, speaking in a language Liam could not understand. Girl finally turned to face him again, her expression calm though her smirk never fully left, and she explained in human tongue that these were the council, the keepers of tradition, who oversaw the destiny matches. She said that long ago, the fates had bound certain humans and their people together, and that Liam was one of the chosen bloodlines. He was now part of a bond that could not be broken. He tried to protest, saying he had a life, a home, friends who would miss him, but she simply shook her head, telling him that those ties were no longer his destiny. He felt anger boiling in his chest, but there was also a deep unease because a small part of him felt a strange connection to her. Even though he had just met her, he looked into her dark, glowing eyes and felt as if she knew things about him. He had never spoken out loud, things he had never even admitted to himself. She reached out and touched his wrist lightly, a gesture that was neither rough nor tender, just firm and certain, and suddenly felt a warmth spreading from her touch into his veins like a signal awakening something ancient within him. Before he could pull away, one of the council members spoke again, and a holographic image appeared between them, showing two bright lights orbiting each other, slowly drawing closer and closer. The girl translated, saying that their bond was tied not only by tradition, but by a deep biological connection. The survival of her people depended on humans like him. She said it was more than marriage, more than a union. It was a merging of paths written long before they were born. Her voice carried no doubt, and he wondered if she truly believed this, or if it was simply the way she had been taught. As she led him out of the chamber, Liam's thoughts raced. He wanted to escape, he wanted to demand answers, but the ship was enormous and alien, and there was nowhere to run. The girl guided him to a smaller room that felt like private quarters. The walls shimmered with gentle light, and the floor was soft under his boots. She told him to rest, and that he would need strength for what was to come. When he asked her what exactly that meant, she simply gave him a sharp look and said his romantic duties would begin soon. Words sent a chill through him, because he realized this was not just about alliances or survival. This was about him and her bound together in a way he had not agreed to. But as she stood by the door and looked at him with that same knowing smirk, he could not deny that part of him was drawn to her, even through his fear. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, strong and distant, yet there was a flicker of something softer in her eyes that he could not name. When she left the room, Liam sat on the edge of the low bed, staring at the walls that shifted with gentle light. He could still feel the warmth from where she had touched his wrist, and it unsettled him more than anything. He wanted to believe this was a mistake, that they would let him go, but deep down, he already knew his life would never return to the quiet routine of the colony. The ship was moving now. He could feel the soft vibrations beneath the floor, carrying him away from his home into the unknown. As Proku, he closed his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. He wondered what awaited him in this strange new world, and if he would ever understand why destiny had matched him to the alien girl who had looked at him as though she had already claimed him completely. Liam awoke to a soft vibration running through the floor of the room, and for a moment he forgot where he was. The lights on the walls were glowing with a dim golden hue, and the air felt warmer than before, a reminder that he was no longer on his colony, but trapped inside the alien ship. As it traveled further into the depths of space, he sat up and tried to steady his thoughts, though his heart was heavy and restless. The images of the council, the alien girl's smirk, and the words "destiny has matched us" kept flashing in his mind like a voice he could not escape. The door to the room opened without a sound, and the alien girl stepped inside, her posture still graceful and commanding. Yet there was something different in her eyes, as if she was measuring him for reasons he could not understand. She told him it was time to see more of the ship and the world he was becoming a part of, and Liam stood reluctantly, knowing there was no point in arguing because she would not listen, and there was nowhere for him to run. The corridors outside were alive with movement, aliens walking in silence there, skin glowing faintly, their voices soft and musical as they communicated in a language that felt older than time itself. They led him to a vast chamber unlike the council hall. This one was bustling with energy. Glowing platforms hovered in the air, each covered in strange equipment and screens filled with alien symbols. The girl explained this was the heart of the ship where every system was controlled and maintained. Liam stared in awe as he watched figures working with incredible focus, their hands moving across the controls with a precision that made him feel clumsy and small. The hum of the ship felt louder here, and he realized how powerful it truly was. As they walked through the chamber, he began to notice the looks from the other aliens. Some were curious, but others were hard and cold, as if they disapproved of his presence. He whispered to the girl, asking why they were staring, but she only said quietly that not all of her people accepted the destiny matches. There were factions who believed humans had no place among them, and that bringing Liam here would only create more division. The words chilled him because it meant he was not just a stranger, he was a threat to their unity. Suddenly a sharp alarm rang out. The glow of the walls flickered, and the humming of the ship became harsher. The girl immediately grabbed his arm, pulling him behind a protective barrier as explosions echoed from somewhere deep within the vessel. Alien voices shouted in their language, and a figure rushed toward them, reporting that hostile forces had breached one of the lower decks. Liam's chest tightened as he realized this was no accident. Someone was attacking the ship from within, and he could feel the tension in the girl's grip as she listened to the report. She told him quickly that they were under attack by those who opposed the human alliances, and that she needed him to stay close to her, no matter what happened, before he could respond. Another explosion shook the floor, throwing them both to the ground. The lights dimmed to a flicker, and smoke began to fill the chamber. Liam coughed and tried to see through the haze, but he could barely make out the silhouettes of alien warriors rushing past them, weapons glowing in their hands. The girl pulled him to his feet and led him through a hidden passageway that curved away from the main chamber, her movements fast and certain, as if she knew the ship's secret paths. Liam stumbled behind her, trying to keep up, his mind racing with questions. Why would anyone go to such lengths to stop these matches? And why did it feel like this was bigger than just him and her? When they finally reached a quieter part of the ship, she pressed him against the wall and whispered that the attackers would not hesitate to harm him if they found him, if to them he was the symbol of everything they hated. For the first time, Liam saw real concern in her eyes. The smirk was gone, replaced by a fierce determination that made his breath catch. She reached into her armor and handed him a small device, explaining it would shield him from scanners for a short time, but only if he stayed close to her. When he asked why she was risking herself to protect him, she did not answer directly. Instead, she said that destiny had chosen him, and that if anything happened to him, the bond would be broken forever and their people would suffer. Before he could ask more, a group of rebels appeared at the far end of the corridor, their weapons glowing bright. As they raised them, the girl stepped in front of Liam, drawing a sleek weapon from her side and firing beams of light that struck the attackers with incredible precision. The corridor filled with heat and sound. As the fight erupted, Liam could only watch in shock as she moved like a storm, dodging enemy fire and striking back with flawless skill. One rebel got close, and Liam instinctively pushed them away, giving the girl a chance to finish the fight. She turned to him after the last attacker fell, and for the first time her expression softened. She told him quietly that he had just saved her life, though he barely understood how, and before he could reply, she grabbed his wrist and said they needed to reach the command center before the rebels could take control of the ship. They ran through more corridors, past rooms filled with smoke and frightened voices. The ship shuddered again as more explosions went off, and Liam realized they were running out of time. As they reached a massive sealed door, the girl placed her hand on a glowing panel, and it opened to reveal a high room filled with transparent screens, showing stars and distant planets. Alien officers stood at their stations shouting reports. The girl pulled Liam inside and told him to stay close because what was about to happen would decide not only their future, but the future of both their people. Liam could feel the weight of her words, and he knew this was no longer just about him being taken from his home. This was about survival and unity, and he could not ignore the feeling in his chest that told him he was now a part of something far greater than he could ever have imagined. The command center was alive with chaos as alarms screamed and lights flickered, casting shifting shadows across the polished floor. Liam stood near the back, his heart thundering in his chest as he watched the alien officers move swiftly from one control panel to another, their voices overlapping in a language he still could not understand. He could feel the tension like a heavy weight pressing down on his shoulders, and the only thing grounding him was the presence of the alien girl, who stood in front of him giving sharp orders, her expression fierce and determined as she tried to hold the situation together. She turned briefly to him, telling him in a low voice that the rebels had seized two of the main power cores, and if they destroyed them, the ship would be lost. Along with everyone on board, Liam's breath caught in his throat as he realized the gravity of the situation. He asked if there was anything he could do to help, and she looked at him for a moment, as if considering whether to trust him with more responsibility. Then she nodded and told him to follow her closely, because they would need to reach the lower decks, where the final battle was already taking place. Left the command center, moving quickly through the narrow corridors of the ship, the walls around them trembling as distant explosions shook the vessel. Liam struggled to keep up, his legs burning from the effort, but he pushed forward, knowing that if he fell behind, he might be lost forever. The alien girl did not slow down, her hand occasionally brushing his arm to make sure he was still there. They finally reached a hidden lift that descended deep into the heart of the ship, the air growing hotter and thicker with each passing second until the doors opened to a scene that made Liam's blood run cold. The lower deck was a battlefield. Smoke filled the air and the glow of weapons lit up the space in bursts of red and blue. Alien warriors clashed with the rebels, their bodies moving with deadly precision, but the fight was brutal, and Liam could see that the defenders were struggling. The rebels outnumbered them, and every moment the chance of the power cores being destroyed grew higher. The alien girl pulled Liam behind a large pillar and explained quickly that they needed to disable the rebel leader who was directing the attack from the center of the deck. Without him, the rest would scatter. She told Liam to stay hidden until she gave the signal, but he shook his head, saying he would not just hide while others fought and died. Her eyes softened for a brief moment at his words, and she seemed to understand the resolve behind them. She gave him a small nod, and together they began to move carefully along the shadows of the deck, weaving between crates and wreckage. Liam's heart raced with every step. He could hear the distant hum of the power cores, a steady reminder of what was at stake. When they finally reached a vantage point, he saw the rebel leader standing tall at the center of the deck, surrounded by guards, his weapon glowing brightly as he shouted orders that spurred the rebels on. The alien girl whispered a plan to Liam. She would draw the guards away while he would find a way to disable the leader's weapon, because without it the man would lose control over the battle. Liam felt a surge of fear at the thought, but he nodded, knowing there was no other choice. She gave him one last look, a look that held both trust and something deeper, and then she leaped from their hiding place, moving with impossible speed as she engaged the guards, drawing their attention away from Liam, who took the chance to creep forward inch by inch until he was close enough to the rebel leader. The leader was focused on the fight and did not see Liam coming. Liam's hands shook as he reached for the weapon, but at the last second, the man turned, and their eyes met. A flash of surprise crossing the leader's face before he swung his arm to strike. Liam ducked, barely avoiding the blow, and threw himself forward, grabbing at the weapon with all the strength he had. The two struggled violently, the weapon glowing brighter as it powered up, threatening to discharge a blast that would kill them. Both Liam grit his teeth and forced it away from the leader's grip, slamming it against the ground where it shattered in a burst of light. Sudden loss of the weapon sent shockwaves through the rebel forces. The alien girl saw the opening and rallied the defenders, pushing the rebels back with a renewed strength. Liam staggered to his feet, the leader lunging at him in rage. But before the man could land a blow, the girl appeared, striking the leader down with a precise strike that left him unconscious or worse. Liam did not ask, he only followed as she called out to the others, urging them to secure the deck. The battle raged on for several more minutes, but without their leader, the rebels began to scatter, retreating into the depths of the ship until the defenders finally stood victorious. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke, and the quiet moans of the injured Liam collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The alien girl knelt beside him, her eyes searching his face for signs of injury. When she saw he was unharmed, she allowed herself the smallest smile and told him he had done well, that his actions had turned the tide of the battle. Liam felt a strange warmth in his chest at her words, a mixture of pride and relief, and something else he could not quite name. She helped him to his feet, and together they made their way back toward the command center. The corridors were eerily quiet, now the echoes of the battle still lingering in the silence. Liam looked at her and finally asked why she cared so much whether he lived or died. She stopped walking for a moment and met his gaze, her voice soft as she said that it was not only destiny that bound them, but also the choices they had made since meeting each other. She admitted that she had seen something in him from the beginning, a strength he did not see in himself, and that strength had saved both of them. Liam did not know how to respond to her words, but he felt the bond between them growing stronger with each step. They took back to the command center. When they arrived, the council was already waiting, their faces grim as they heard the report of the battle. The girl stood tall, explaining how the rebels had been defeated, but warning that the threat was not over. Their enemies would regroup and attack again. Unless something changed, she said, they could no longer hide behind old traditions, and that they needed true unity between humans and her people, or everything would be lost. Council members looked at each other in silence, as if weighing her words. Liam felt the weight of the moment pressing on him, and he knew the next decision they made would change not only his life, but the fate of two species. He looked at the alien girl standing so close beside him, and realized that whatever came next, he could not let fear control him anymore. The council chamber was silent after the alien girl finished her words, the air heavy with the weight of her statement. Liam stood beside her, his heart beating fast as he watched the elders exchange glances, their expressions unreadable. He felt like the entire fate of the ship, and perhaps more, rested on what they would decide next. Finally, the eldest among them stepped forward, their glowing eyes fixed on both Liam and the girl. They spoke in their ancient language, and though Liam could not understand the words, he could feel the depth of the decision being made. The girl listened carefully and then turned to Liam, explaining softly that the council had agreed to her proposal, but with a condition. They would not only recognize the bond between humans and her people, they would make it official in a way that could not be broken. They wanted Liam to choose in front of them if he would stay and accept the bond fully, or if he would return to his world forever, cutting all ties. His chest tightened as he heard the choice, because he knew once he decided, there would be no going back. He looked at the alien girl, her dark eyes glowing faintly, and in that moment memories of everything they had been through flooded his mind. The day he was taken from his colony, the fear he felt when he first saw her, the battles they fought together, and the way she had protected him, even when it put her life at risk. He remembered how she had believed in him when he did not believe in himself, and how the bond between them had grown stronger despite the danger and uncertainty. The council waited patiently, and Liam realized that his decision was not only about himself anymore, it was about her, and about the hope of two worlds. He stepped forward, his voice steady even though his heart was pounding, and he said he would stay He would accept the bond and build a future with her, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The chamber filled with a soft hum, as if the ship itself approved of his choice. The alien girl allowed herself a smile, one that carried warmth and relief, and perhaps even love. The elders performed a ceremony unlike anything Liam had ever seen. Lines of light stretched from the floor and wrapped gently around him and the girl, connecting them in a glowing circle. The energy was warm and comforting, and for the first time, he felt the bond as more than just words. It was a deep connection that touched his heart and soul. The girl reached out and clasped his hands, her grip strong and steady, and he realized she was no longer the distant warrior who had smirked at him with confidence. When they first met, she was his partner in every sense. When the ceremony ended, the council declared the bond official and unbreakable. The news spread quickly through the ship, and the tension that had once divided the crew began to lift. Liam noticed the way the alien officers now looked at him, not as an outsider, but as someone who belonged. The girl stayed close to him, her presence reassuring as they walked through the corridors, where lights now glowed with a calmer, softer energy. The ship was healing from the battle, and so was everyone on board. Later that night, Liam stood on a wide observation deck, gazing out at the endless stretch of stars. He thought about his home, about the colony, and the quiet life he once knew, and he realized he no longer longed to return because something greater was waiting for him. Now he felt a hand rest lightly on his shoulder, and he turned to see the alien girl standing beside him. Her smirk had returned, but it was different now, warmer and filled with affection. She teased him, saying, "Human destiny has matched us. Your alien mate awaits you now." He laughed softly at her words, knowing she was repeating what she had said the first time they met, but now the meaning was completely different. He looked at her and said that he would not want it any other way. She leaned closer, her eyes reflecting the starlight, and for a long moment, they simply stood together, the universe stretching endlessly before them. But for the first time, Liam did not feel small or afraid. He felt ready for whatever came next, because he knew he would not be facing it alone. In the days that followed, the ship reached its home world, a planet covered in glowing forests and towering cities of silver and crystal. Liam was awestruck by its beauty. As they descended through the atmosphere, the girl explained that their arrival would mark the beginning of a new era for both their people. She held his hand firmly as they stepped out onto the landing platform, where thousands had gathered to witness the bond that now symbolized unity and hope. Liam could see the mixture of curiosity and acceptance in their eyes, and he felt a quiet pride growing within him. Alien Council declared the creation of a joint alliance between humans and their species, an alliance that would work together to ensure survival and progress for generations to come. Liam was given a place of honor, but he did not seek recognition. He only wanted to be by the side of the girl who had changed his life forever. That night, as the planet celebrated with lights and music, Liam stood with her on a balcony overlooking the glowing city. She turned to him with the same confident smirk she had worn since the first day, but now he understood that behind it was a heart that truly cared. He told her quietly that he was ready to embrace this new world, and she nodded, saying he had always been stronger than he believed. The bond they shared was no longer a matter of destiny alone. It was built on choices, sacrifices, and a trust that would never be broken. As the stars shone brightly above them, Liam realized that his journey, which had begun in fear, had led him to something far greater than he could have imagined. And so the human and the alien girl stood together, not as strangers, but as partners in a future that would belong to both their worlds. They would face challenges and adventures, but whatever came their way, Liam knew they would overcome it together, for he was no longer just a boy from a distant colony. He was part of something larger, something that would echo through time and across the stars. Forever. The end.